Hello, my name's Michael Conneely and I'm bringing you a brief video in connection with our Astrology and Healing magazine for October 2018. It's quite a huge newsletter with many items, so I'm giving you a summary of the contents now. And the first half of the October newsletter is actually a separate video from my wife Maggie Pashley, who is talking about past life hypnosis. So going back to contact things in past lives which are creating scripts in this life, healing them, dealing with them. And it's part of a small range, or a big range of things she does, because she also does future life progression, and I think that will be covered in a future newsletter. So that's when you're taken, say, 5 years into your future, and what future do you see? And if it's one that you want, what do you have to do now to make that happen, to help it happen? And if it's one you don't want, are the changes you can make now? So that's going to be upcoming. There's also reading the Akashic records, and it is so helpful to have that statement, and it's extremely encouraging, and it gives such understanding to see past lives and how they relate to our superconscious self, to our eternal self. And then there's soul realignment healing. But anyway, the focus for October from Maggie is past life hypnosis. So now let's look at my astrology section to the newsletter, and it's actually very big. There's 15 items, so I can only be selective here and invite you to read the blog where each item's fully set out. So I think the first item I'll summarize them first. Venus goes retrograde. Pluto turns direct, our power arises. The blessings and expansion of the Jupiter transit from Libra, from Vedic Libra to Vedic Scorpio. I've got a section on Mercury and Chiron, and quite a big section on the Mars-Ketu conjunction in Vedic Capricorn. It's huge, it's been running so long, it's a massive presence in our life, and indeed for the world climate and issues like volcanic eruptions. Importantly, a section on Kalsarpa Yoga, which is in force this month. And then, well, what about Saturn? What is Lord Shani, Lord of Karma, doing and how in October? Uranus is retrograde, indeed at times opposite Venus in the heavens. Ketu is in Uttarashada Nakshatra within Vedic Capricorn, and that is very important for people with major planets in Uttarashada Nakshatra. Big changes in their life, because Ketu's there as he's heading through Capricorn towards a Vedic Sagittarius. There's a new moon in Vedic Virgo in Hasta Nakshatra on October the 8th, and there's a very big full moon on October the 24th, and I give details of that. So I mentioned the movement of the Sun from October the 16th to November the 17th in Libra, Vedic Libra. Neptune retrograde. The dangerous days for the mind that have been coming every month for a while. What dates are they in October? And lastly, there's a very good list at the end of the newsletter on the October transit dates, on retrograde planets and that sort of thing. So, I can only be selective, but let's start with Venus turns retrograde. So Venus turns retrograde on the 7th of October, and during October Venus will be combust at times. So what's that about? I mean, it's a very big topic, but, and in fact, we've been feeling the Venus retrograde period for longer than the actual retrograde because of what's called the shadow of the retrograde, when a planet is moving through a space that it will in future be retrograding through, and we feel that. So possibly this may be the most important bit of the newsletter, because when a planet retrogrades, we have to take serious stock of its issues, and we have to personalize the destiny of that planet in the particular individual personal way that we incarnated to deal with that planet. So Venus matters a love, and we might feel all sorts of tensions in love during the Venus retrograde. We might be dealing with shadow material, dark sides of ourselves that we might not want to acknowledge, but which affect our behaviour in love, blame agendas, flaws, destructive scripts in love, healing old karmic scripts around love. Work with the balance of self-assertion and relationship. And it's all about really creating positive healing and greater love, gratitude, trust and cherishing. Create your dream. Issues in love will be coming to the fore now during the Venus retrograde period. There is a combustion of Venus in this period when Venus is in the same degree as the Sun, and we feel Venus harmed by the egoic heat of the Sun as Venus approaches the Sun, conjuncts it and moves beyond it. And so that's for several days around October the 25th. And actually this exact combust date marks the transition from Venus as evening star to Venus as morning star that was so important to ancient peoples, for example the ancient Babylonians. So in fact, because of this retrograde, Venus is actually transiting in Vedic Libra, the sign of Vedic Libra, for an exceptionally long period. In fact, until January the 1st. And so generally speaking, to have Venus transiting through Vedic Libra is so good for issues around love, sex, pleasure, beauty, friendship, talents, attraction, joy, harmony, peace, desire, wealth, luxuries, art, music, truth of relationships, aesthetic truths. And in the case of Libra, justice, values, peace and balance, our shining. So remember, there's a Uranus-Venus opposition in the heavens exact around October the 30th and again on December the 1st. And so that will certainly amplify impatience, passion, desire. And then Venus will enter Vedic Scorpio on January the 2nd, which is a totally different agenda. Hurts, deep grudges and traumas surfacing around Venus. So now is the time to build your loving relationship. So the second point in the newsletter is Pluto turns direct. Pluto actually turned direct on September the 30th. And well, I feel the power of Pluto turning direct. And in fact, I've had a recent eclipse on my Pluto and a recent full moon on my Pluto, so I can see how I am asserting myself more. And of course, one has to be sure that the assertion is good and right. And so, at its highest, Pluto turning direct is rebirth. And remember, Pluto governs hidden riches, buried riches. Look for now those riches which you can find buried as Pluto, Lord of Hades, arises and moves forward as an energetic presence in your life. Now actually I've got 5 associated mini blogs and mini videos with this newsletter, and they'll be coming out one a day from the publication of the newsletter. And one of them is about sub-personalities within our charts. So for example, if you have a planet that doesn't form an aspect to any other planet in your chart, that's an unaspected sub-personality. And so I explain all about that in that video and blog, and look out for it. Because if you have Pluto as an unaspected sub-personality, well, because it's not connected to the rest of your chart, you can't be sure how you're coming over with the quality of that planet. At times you may not be able to connect to the area of life that that planet is the energy for. So you can feel you're doing really well with the nature of a planet, and then it just ebbs and disappears for a few years until it's activated again by a progression or a transit. So I've got, as I said, 5 really good mini videos and mini blogs about things like unaspected sub-personalities, and also, for example, relating to Vedic astrology, Avashtas, the standing of each planet in your Vedic birth chart and how your planets treat each other. And of course you'll particularly feel that when a planet is activated by transit, but especially when a planet is activated by its predictive period, the dashas and the sub-periods within those, the bhuktis and so forth. The next thing I want to mention is that Jupiter enters Vedic Scorpio. Now, generally speaking, Jupiter does better in Vedic Scorpio than it does in Vedic Libra, because of the general way that Venus and Jupiter get on with each other. But I want to say that my transit through Vedic Libra was sublime. I have 3 planets in Vedic Libra, and wonderful move of house. Libra's the 4th house of home. It's Maggie's 1st house, and particularly now that Jupiter has moved into Vishaka at the end of Libra, where she has her ascendant, the success. But Jupiter moves into Vedic Scorpio on October the 11th, and he remains there until November the 4th, 2019. So you need to sort of work out particularly what house in your birth chart Vedic Scorpio is. And in the section on this transit, I've actually got a little indication of the sort of area of life that Jupiter in Vedic Scorpio will be good for for each of the 12 ascendant signs in Vedic astrology. So the next section is on Mercury and Chiron, and I particularly put those two together because a little bit ago Mercury was, let me get this right, conjunct the Sun in the heavens and opposite Chiron, and the Mercury problems I had were just horrific from that. So it shows the importance of Mercury in our life and the power of Chiron. Now there's another section on the Mars-Ketu conjunction in Capricorn. That has been so huge, so wonderful in my life, but so challenging. I mean, the energy is violence, but it's also inspiration. And because it's in Capricorn, it's technical. And so, for example, I have been like building an extension to our Airbnb. I've had loads of inspiration. I've created a magical will course to teach ways of identifying our inspiration goal and keeping it alive and powerful in our life. And I've had to do a lot of work preparing for a worldwide Rune Wisdom Telesummit where I'm one of the teachers. And I feel the runes are very much Mars-Ketu in Capricorn, huge magical power within structure and form. So I tell you a little bit about that. So important to note that Kalsarpa Yoga is in the heavens. Now, Kalsarpa Yoga is when all the Vedic planets are to one side of the nodal axis. Now, in fact, the truth is, say a planet has gone a little bit past one of the nodes, as long as it's in the same sign as the node, the Kalsarpa energy still holds force. I'll tell you what it is in a moment. And just because the moon has gone away from all the other planets which are to one side of nodes, that doesn't make it easier for the moon. The moon is alone and unsupported in a divisive consciousness realm. It's a Kemadruma moon, it's an unsupported moon. It makes it worse, if anything, not better. I wanted to say that because a lot of people think that Kalsarpa Yoga doesn't exist just because a planet goes a bit beyond the node but is still within the same sign, just because the moon goes outside the grouping of all the other planets. So what is the energy of Kalsarpa Yoga? Well, it's preposterous and divisive. It can have a capacity for great hard work. It can produce a sort of reflex effect where the person is actually, afraid in a sense of the awfulness of, of what the divisiveness is, so they can be sort of timid and held back. But the important thing is, like every difficult astrologically defined energy, they're here for us to learn spiritually and seek to cope, seek to manifest the special talent that we incarnated this time to achieve. Now, just the final point I have time for, but there are 3 times as many points in the newsletter. Saturn is moving so slowly at the moment. Saturn is really making sure we do what we have to do. We tie up the loose ends. Oh, and just to say, I must say, Ketu in Uttarashada Nakshatra in Capricorn is bringing spiritual, intense illumination to quite a few Uttarashada people. People with Uttarashada moon or sun, for example. So, there's no way I can cover the material in this video, but please do read the blog. It's very worthwhile. Thanks very much.